st- well, excuse me, sorry. Um, Basically, our story today that we're going to be talking about is a lost subject that just seems to be going away, which is CB radios and CB lingo. So basically, I'd like to see other people talk about it that's been around CB radios and find out what we got to know about it. Certain lingo that used to be spoken that you hardly ever hear any longer. And, with everything going on, I wish today I had a CB radio to do all this, but, it was more faithful than what technology is now. Uh, with that being said, let's get the show started here. We're already pressed for some time, anyhow. How about Boss Man? You want to come up and have a
I
chit
guess I
chat?
got to save the day. Folks,
Yeah,
let's
please
just have
do.
fun today. Let's just talk and chat about things we said and did back in the day. Most of you watching this show, I'm sure, can relate to the old fashioned days when Breaker 19, there's a bear on your front door. That kind of talk, that kind of lingo, stories told over the CB radios, things shared, things done. The first time you hooked up a CB radio to the first freaking vehicle you drove, I can remember that. Can you? Put it in the comments. Let us know. These stories are what make you and me better truckers because we share things that people today don't have any clue what it means. Truckers today don't carry CBs. They don't know about it. In fact, most companies have policies against it. So let's bring back the days of old. Let's have fun chatting about it. And like the grumpy old trucker loves reveling about, bring back the days when people like Red Sovine could create stories on better times. What do you think, Ruppy?
I think you couldn't have said it any better. I'm just, uh,
You're
I'm,
tongue tied because you're busy.
yeah.
You're having a day.
I'm
So we'll
having
have
one of
to
them
forgive,
days.
we'll have to forgive you before it even starts. So I mean, yeah, you're having a day that you're not
Please.
planning on. So yeah. So let's bring up another guy who's probably got some nice, and I mean really nice stories about CB radios of the day. In fact, he's got a pretty intricate radio system sitting right across the room from him right now. So Bo, give me some song and dance about your days with CB radio. How about it? Come on.
Oh my God. My first CB radio was a foot wide,
Mhm.
6 inches tall, and
Wow.
2 feet
Mhm.
front to back.
Wow. That's impressive.
And it had tubes.
Tubes.
Oh, wait a
Tubes.
minute. Did you have to
That's
hand crank that old CB up just to use it?
solid state technology. God bless it, man. I tell you
I mean,
what.
no, seriously.
Yep.
It had like the old kind of radio tubes.
Mhm. Yep. They don't make
Okay?
that kind of stuff anymore, man. Solid state doesn't exist. In fact, you got to
No.
pay money to have it designed.
Exactly,
Yep.
which is where electronics came in.
Yep. Now everything's microprocessors. It's
However,
no great way to compare to that.
Mm-mm.
no, but I put it up on my dash. Now, at the time that I was driving,
hmm
okay, I was still in my young years,
Right.
so 16 to 20.
hmm
Excuse me. I put that thing on the dash of my 1965 model B61 Mac,
hmm
and it obliterated the screen on the passenger side.
Wow.
But I had a
Hey,
CB.
it worked.
Oh, yeah. Until one of the tubes blew.
Well, that was
Oh,
enough.
wow.
Those things
But
never lasted very long at
no,
all. You
from,
were always replacing those things.
yeah, from the shaking,
Yep, exactly, exactly. They
you
couldn't take
know.
it.
Well, believe it or
And
not, I have my grandparents have an old AM radio still there at the house
Yep.
mm,
that has tubes in it.
Okay, same thing.
Yeah.
Don't go shaking it.
Which of you two can name some manufacturers of old radios? Not just CB radios, but regular transistor radios. You guys have any
RCA,
names in mind?
RCA.
Of course.
Mhm.
Um, oh God.
Motorola,
Yeah,
Cobra,
realistic.
Realistic.
Motorola
No,
wasn't
no, no, no.
Motorola wasn't a
Cobra
thing
wasn't.
until the 70s.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking
Realist,
before that.
Oh,
realistic,
What's that?
realistic.
That was also a late 60s, early 70s. Keep
Well,
going.
and that's when I started driving.
Okay, but I'm talking about before that time frame. I want to see what you guys know about radio history.
good
Uh,
Lord. Gonna go back to where Alexander Bell invented the telephone?
The reason I bring it up is my father was a collector of antique radios,
Oh,
and he
okay.
specialized in exactly everything that man over there is talking about. He's talking about tube style technology that basically created what we have in today's radios. I
right.
mean, one of the names that come to mind is one he mentioned, which is RCA.
Hmm.
Hmm.
RCA was created by a fella with the last name of Phillips. Phillips
Oh,
was a
Oh,
standalone company of its own that made radios, transistors, and receiver components for not only radios but TVs as well.
and they came from the country I was born in,
Right? Exactly.
Holland.
Stand by. Stand by 1 second, guys.
Yep.
well, with that,
Philip,
I'll be
Phil,
honest with you. The way I look at it is, all truck drivers today really
Sorry.
need to have on, and they need to have it where they can listen in and for
Yep.
good purposes. It's not just for jibber jabber.
Yep.
It's for communicating
Not,
when an accident's coming up, or if
hmm.
yeah.
there's cars stalled on the side of the highway or on the highway.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, it helps. It's a great way of communication, because you can't do that from a cell phone unless you're gonna. I mean, of course, there is an app that supposedly will allow you
I
to
was
do it,
going
but
to
it's
say,
not
don't
accurate.
limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. One more
Yeah,
thing
it's
about
not
radio
accurate.
history. One more thing about radio history that I wanted to mention before I had to go answer my front door. Um, Victrola. Who remembers that name?
I've
Oh,
heard it. I've heard it.
oh,
Yeah.
that that was the disc player with the great big horn on it.
What used to, yeah, what eventually became the phonograph? Yeah,
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Victrola also
Victrola.
had AM, FM, not stereo receivers, because back in the day that didn't exist, but
No,
AM, FM receivers.
I
Yes.
Um,
was not aware of that.
yep. Phillips made the transmitters. Victrola mastered the receivers, and
Okay.
they used that technology to perfect the phonograph that you talk about.
Mm,
But that was one of the things my father, I mean, he just loved looking into that stuff.
mm,
And before he passed away, because he died a few years back, he had up until a short time before that a full size table. It stood about
mhm,
2.5 feet tall. It was
mhm.
a huge cabinet, and in it had an 8-track tape player. It had a full phonograph. It had a um, newly installed regular cassette tape player,
Wow.
and it had a combination shortwave and VHF CB, or not a CB, but
Two-way radio.
shortwave. Yeah, it was an AM/FM transmitter receiver.
Darn, that thing must have weighed a ton.
Well, the
Probably.
reason he had that was because his early days in the army back in the 60s was in communications. So
Ah,
he had
he
access
was
to
he
all that.
was probably kind of like
Yeah.
civil defense was. I see. Yes.
Well, yeah, no, he wasn't really that big, but when he served over in England for about 4 years and did communications as a specialty. That was his MO
Mm.
over there.
I've been thinking about looking into ham.
Mhm. Well, you've got a setup right next to you there, poet. You don't talk about
No,
ham.
Sure do.
no. Well,
VHF is about as close to ham as you get.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about worldwide ham.
Oh,
You know
I
what the
see what he's talking about.
You know what the frequency difference is between what you have and what ham radios?
There's like,
20,
ho-
20 megahertz. That's it.
yeah, but I can't get that on my VHF.
Well, that's because the government's programmed radios to separate the things, but the difference is 20 megahertz.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, CB radios transmit between a band of 25 megahertz and 28 or 29, I think.
Hmm.
Ham radios go between, I think, the high 90s all the way up to 800s. You know,
Hmm.
it just
Yeah.
depends on what you do and
Hmm.
depends on the
Right.
chip and technology you have in your radio. But you only can legally transmit on those frequencies if you have a radio frequency ID, which is
Okay.
what,
A
yeah,
light, and that's a
Well, real
license.
quickly,
That's a
it's right,
license. Yeah.
right, yeah. What's
Hmm.
that, Grumpy?
real
He froze
quickly,
up.
I'd like to acknowledge a few of my
Grumpy,
wonderful.
you're freezing up. So I think I
I'd
know
like
where
to.
I
Said
want.
I
Yeah,
would like to real quickly
show's going to
acknowledge
hell.
my subscriber. Oh my! Can
You're
you hear
freezing
me?
up. Let me. Yeah, I can hear you. Let me take over. We have a Dorothy in the
Oh crap!
comments. I think that's what you're talking about, Grumpy. One of our subscribers. So I want to acknowledge that, saying hi, Uncle Grumpy. Also, a watcher of both of our channels.
Okay.
Thomas Barb. Hello, fellas.
Yes, please.
Um, and thank you. Welcome to the show. Want to thank you for being here. Um, Dorothy says, I think my dad still has a few CB radios, but he never explained them. Yeah. So glad you could tune in and learn a little bit. Like I said, the CB radios themselves, and I'm giving you a chance to clear your internet signal there, Grumpy, because I know you're having an issue. But the frequency for CB radios is really low frequency. It's not
Hmm.
huge. It doesn't blow people away, but it served truckers for many years, and it's a great utility to have.
Hmm.
As Grumpy mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't believe in carrying them. And as I opened the show with, there are some companies that have this weird policy of because it creates a distraction, they don't want their drivers using the darn things,
It's the
which
insurance.
and that too.
Yeah.
Um, Gilligan, if you're with us, hi. Give us a lowdown. The company that you work for, my friend, do they have any policies regarding CB radios?
No, they don't.
Okay, so
The only policy they have against them is they don't want them boosted.
they don't want them what?
Boosted.
Oh, boosted. Well, that kind of makes sense because you run the risk of burning up the truck.
No.
I mean, yeah, sometimes you do. Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing,
No.
it'll
Okay.
definitely
Yeah.
mess with the truck. Yeah,
All right.
there have been some people that have had that kind of an issue. So, um, anyway, we're gonna give Grumpy the patience and the time he needs to straighten out his signal.
Hmm.
Um, what are some of your earliest memories, Poet, of chatting on the CB? Let's stay true to our mission on this show today. What are some of your fondest memories back in the day?
Hey, radio check. Come on.
Was it anything as glorious and as fantastic as the convoy of the day?
No, Frank.
No. Yeah, I
Frank.
see him.
Am I
I see him.
back?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can. We can hear you, Grumpy.
My internet said bye.
Yep. Well, your show's still here because you have an awesome co-host. You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that. I'm
Um,
very happy to have one too.
How about a
Talking myself up.
how about a co-host and a
A
co-host?
co-host? Yeah, there you go. There you go. We're just hamming it up.
Yeah.
Ta-da-dum. Anyway,
Yeah.
so what go on with your fondest memories with your bad self, Poet? Come on, talk about it.
Well,
Gotta
Please
be more
do.
to it than radio check. Come on now.
I remember, there's a bear in the air at Mile Stick, this and that. There's a bear sitting in the comedian strip, shooting you in the back, and you
Okay.
can't see him until
Yeah.
you passed him.
How about a story where actually that CB radio wound up actually doing something noble, like saving you time, saving someone's life, saving saving you from having to stop and make a phone call. 'Cause back in the day, we didn't cell phones, so things like that. How effective and useful was the CB radio back in the day? 54 years, you've got to have some kind of story there. Come on now.
There was a God. This brings back memories, and they're not fond ones.
Well,
There
let's
was no. Hang on.
tell stories.
Oh no. I will explain. Okay.
Good.
In Ohio, there was an accident between a a semi and three four-wheelers, and all most semis went around it. I pulled over to the side because I had a first aid kit, and I was told about this 2 miles before it happened.
Wow.
um, One of the cars was on fire. A woman and three kids died.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. This is like 45
What?
years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, the biggest deal for me was the cops hadn't arrived yet.
Mhm.
Laying out the old fuses.
Mhm.
Do you remember those? The flame fuses?
Mhm.
And at the end of it all, 2 hours later, I wound up picking body parts up in a green garbage bag.
Mhm.
And it was all
So,
because I was warned
mhm.
2 or 3 miles ahead of time that there was a major crash.
Right. Right. So that's where the
So,
CB comes in. So yeah,
oh
it
yeah,
probably quite honestly saved more lives than not having one would otherwise have. And
exactly.
that's one of the things I like, pointing out to people is it's not just one of those things where it's, breaker 19, my panties, whatever the truck stop talk is.
Yeah,
It's not all that. It's
yeah.
it's an actual utility that is a very necessary thing of the day. And a lot of people don't realize that, you know. Everybody has this old-fashioned mindset in their head that it's
Hmm.
all about, you know, telling stories and being cool and everything. I mean, all that's great when you're young, but
Hmm.
when you're as experienced as this group of panelists that are talking,
God.
it's a lot different than that. It's actually a utility that
Hmm.
could save time, lives, money, you name it. And
Hmm.
that's where I come from. I mean, I've lived by that mantra all my entire trucking career.
But
And
you're old. But you're
what do you
old school,
yeah.
like I
Well,
told
yeah.
you yesterday.
Like Gilligan come back in. I want to see what he was laughing at. That didn't sound cool.
All
I'm
right.
gonna pick on that boy.
Nah. I'll
Where'd it go?
I'll
Yeah, he
mute.
just went poof. So what about you, Grumpy? You got 25 years experience. Tell us ways in which
Well,
you recall the CB helped you or others.
the majority of the time, a CB is really ever helpful to me is whenever you come up into traffic and you don't know what's going on. You're not sure if there's been an accident, what lane to go to. Are you going to be exiting off the highway and deterred? I mean, I use it for what it was designed for. I don't sit there and just blah, 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 blah. Like you said, how big are your panties and blah, blah, this and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah,
That stuff is just ridiculous. I
yeah.
mean, uh, I look at it as it's not a toy. It's actually a useful tool,
Right.
and is
Just
and
like
has been
Dorothy.
that way for years.
Just like Dorothy's pointing out in the comments right now. She asked, "Do CB radios come in when there is no cell service?" Think about it. I mean, it can actually be a godsend. There have been plenty of times when I've been around areas of upstate New York, and trust me, there are
Mm.
quite a few areas of upstate New York near Niagara Falls, near the northern borders, close to New Hampshire, Canadian border, such as there's no cell service, or if there is cell service, it's spotty as hell. You can't rely on it. You don't know if it's working. You don't know if you can even make a call. And that CB radio saved me a lot. I'd
And
actually get on that CB radio and ask, anybody know if such and such state route is navigable by trucks? And I'd have a comeback in like 10 seconds. oh yes, driver, go ahead. It's cool. And I'm like, okay, I've got a lot off my shoulders. I don't have to worry about it now. Go ahead, Grump.
And
Or Poet, go ahead.
do you know why you don't have uh, uh, cell service up at the Canadian border?
I know exactly why, because certain carriers for cell service only have limited range around the border.
And it's
And that
not.
transition space between Canadian service and US service is very, very thin. So yeah,
And
I already know about that.
it's intermixed.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So you don't know,
Yep.
okay, if you're
Half
going
the
to
time.
get bounced
Just
from a
Yep.
U.S. carrier to a Canadian carrier.
Yep.
So the phone just says
Yep.
in
Exactly.
your, in
Exactly.
your ear.
That I dealt with for many years because, of course, many of you may know. If you don't, then this is food for thought. I trained and originally became my first CDL job in the state of New York. My first license was in
Yeah,
the New York State area.
we know.
So I used to frequent runs between New York City and all up in the Buffalo, Syracuse, Albany, that northern tier of New York. I was always up there all the time. So that
Hmm.
frequently happened. And one of the first trucks I had, the first thing I did was get a CB radio.
Hmm.
And that was that's where my
Well,
experience comes from. So
in
go ahead, Grump.
a lot of the areas that I travel, which is generally around, the state of Texas, there's always a lot of, accidents and traffic jams, and we are
Yep.
able to communicate with a few drivers that still have radios. I do know most of the ones that do carry radios in their trucks are usually like your grain haulers and your
Hmm.
livestock haulers. As a rule, they have them. Now,
Yep.
do they have them on all the time? That's
No,
iffy. They
no.
may
Well,
have
see,
them
that's
on, but
just
they
the
may be
thing.
turned down.
That's just the thing. When I had them, I was always turning it down because I'd normally be getting phone calls driving down the road, albeit
Right.
headsets usually bleed out a lot of that, but you still want to hear it. So it's usually squelched down, it's usually lower volume,
Hmm.
and you're listening for, brake check, that kind of language. You're listening for that because you want to know what's coming ahead. Um, so that's the way I used to ride. Anyway, that's just food for thought there.
Well, there's a lot of 10 codes that haven't been used in years, and
Oh, 10 codes.
you
My
can
God.
yeah, that's how you actually originally were supposed to talk on all CB radios back in the
Yeah,
day. And Poet will know this.
Yeah.
oh, I know all of us do, but here's the thing. How many people actually really understand what a 10-7 is? How many
Yeah,
people really know
exactly.
what a 10-8 is? How many people
Right.
really know how to even use the term 10-4?
Yeah.
Simple crap like that.
Or even a
I was
10
at one
100.
time, well, and I was at one time, I was so versed with all the 10 codes, I could talk to cops if I got on their frequency if I wanted to. I
And
knew
Yep.
1023. I knew what 1052 was. I knew all of them,
and a lot
and I
and a,
thought I was doing something. But you know what? I get back on the CB radio, and it's like, dude, I don't want to hear about your 10100. Talk to me in plain English.
Yeah.
well,
About the only
a
thing that
lot
I
of
hear
a lot of
anymore is 10-4, and that's
Yeah,
about the only one I hear anymore.
yeah,
yeah.
and a lot
Back
of
in the day, people
cops
used to
back in
take. Back
a
in the
lot
day, people used to take pride in studying those charts.
a lot
They
of
don't. They don't care.
cops
They don't care anymore.
a lot
What's
of
that?
cops back then in New York had CB radios, and
Oh
you
yeah,
could actually talk to them.
yeah. Well, some of them actually still do by law. They have to because there's still an emergency. There's still an emergency channel, and therefore there are always people monitoring channel 9.
Right.
So someone from the government agency or at least emergency services has to monitor it.
But
They
a
have
Right.
to.
lot
But
of cops in their vehicles.
Mhm.
Okay, back when I was trucking into New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, they monitored 19.
Right. Yep.
hmm
For the very same reason.
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
I have a question for you,
Dorothy, I
and
agree 100%. She
one,
says they could definitely be useful for an emergency purpose when cell phones are dead zone. Yes. I always
yeah,
recommend
yes.
that for just
of
that very
course,
reason. Yes. You never know. If you break down and you're in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Arizona, and there's just no service, for example, CB radio, you call out, hey, look, help a trucker, pass a message, whatever. Even somebody stop and give you maybe a gallon of water if that's what you need or whatever.
Right.
There's no telling possibilities. But yes, you are so true there, my girl.
Well, to add to her what she said, Channel 9 is still available on all CBs. Channel 9 is monitored by 911.
It is.
So if you have an emergency, you can use Channel 9 and someone will pick up that on 911.
Yep.
They had I don't remember when, but they actually incorporated it in with 911.
If you have the range on your CB.
This is true,
Not
poet.
always. Believe it or not, there are some internet-based receivers that can pick you up no matter where you are.
Really?
That 911 agency has to be tuned into that and actually has to be receiving that. But did you know you can actually sign up on an internet website and you can receive transmissions from all over the country? You don't have to. You can listen to a CB conversation going on in Las Vegas from New York. Crazy crap.
Really?
I don't know how
And
they do it.
if
but
you're
you
just
can do it.
really bored and want to listen to something, you can actually tune into old Mud Duck on that
Right.
also.
Who?
Did you really have to bring that up, Grumpy?
Who?
I did.
I thought
I
we
did.
one conversation without you bringing that up.
Oh well,
And
he's just a big time famous man on the radio.
You want to give him publicity? Do you think he really gives a crap? I don't think so.
I hear him and I go, hello, goodbye.
He never
That's
hears
what I
you,
think
right?
about that.
He don't hear you. You don't care.
Oh, I know.
Let me ask you guys something, okay? And I really want to know: are VHF radios illegal in the USA
No,
No.
not at all.
for private use?
Not at all. In fact, they're exclusively for private use. They're selling them on all kinds of websites for different frequency ranges, specified, of course, through the FCC, but they're exclusively for private use.
Oh.
Now, there's certain bands that they're phasing out because they want them for different communication purposes, but they're using it. I mean, it's not illegal, never has been. I'm curious why you asked that, because I mean, is that how the Canadian government does it?
No.
Oh, okay.
I have the radio I have in my kitchen has 500 and some odd channels on 17 different banks.
Right.
Wow.
I used to use it when I was running the USA, but only for receiving.
Okay.
The border security, U.S. border security, told me, "Yeah, we don't care if you listen, but you cannot transmit. In other words, take your mic and throw it under the bunk."
There are some
Well,
there are some frequencies that and reasons I can see that.
Oh, so can I.
Well, I mean, that almost makes sense with like emergency service frequencies. If you're in the low 100s, I mean, from 120, what is it, 129 up until 165, I think. Those are both airline, marine, and emergency service frequencies. You cannot transmit on.
Okay.
If you do, you require an actual ham license so that you're identified on. You
No,
have to have it advanced.
it's not ham license. No, you need a separate license to transmit on those frequencies because of the nature of them. It has nothing to do with ham. The ham frequencies go above 160, and they go and they go carry on infinitum. I forget the numbers. There's a huge list online you can find.
You can actually get books.
Yeah, you can, and it's really interesting. But those emergency service frequencies, like for example, 121.540, okay, or no, it's 121.120. I think, I'm not sure. Don't quote me, but 121 frequency. That is the air traffic control frequency that's universally monitored by all airports, all towers,
Right.
all because they want to talk. Anybody has a problem when they're flying a plane and they're in the air. No one can transmit on that except someone who has a mayday or a problem with their aircraft. And that is specific to FCC rules because that is the universal, I forget the name of it, but it's a universal frequency anyone uses if they have problems. So
Okay.
Well, that makes
every other
sense on that.
frequency
Yeah.
every other frequency outside of that is usually utilized by private airlines, and it goes from 120 up to I think 128 or 129. That's specifically airline traffic frequency range.
Hmm.
Above that, they set it up for like EMS, fire, police, different frequency band ranges, you name it. Look online if you want to know the numbers, but that's how they separate it. You even as a ham operator, if you try getting onto ATAC or what they call air traffic control frequency,
Uh-huh.
you will be discovered, cited, fined, and arrested if you do it.
Oh
Even
yeah,
if you
yeah.
have a license, so don't do it. It
They
is
can
bad
try.
news. Yeah.
They can triangulate that.
Yes, they
Hey,
can.
boss man.
What's up?
Dorothy has a question and I can't answer it.
Where do CB radio? Is that the one you're talking about? About
Where
CB
did
radio?
where did the CB radios originate from?
CB radios, believe it or not, are a product of shortwave.
Oh.
That's where they come from. Because back in the day, shortwave was an even lower frequency band than CB. CBs operate between a 29 megahertz, or what is it now? 20 megahertz and up to, I think, just short of 30 megahertz. It's a short range of
Mhm.
frequencies designated citizens band radio. That's what CB stands for.
Yes.
Mhm.
Shortwave was used to transmit radio frequencies which were not designed to carry voice transmissions. Shortwave was designed for things like audible transmissions of Morse code and electronic waves over the sea or ocean to transmit between ocean liner locations. Like back in the day when the Titanic was sailing, they didn't have radio communication where you could key up a mic and talk to
Mhm.
QE2 down, 200 miles downrange. The only way you could talk to somebody out in the ocean in the early 1900s was through shortwave radio, which
Right.
transmitted from a frequency starting at around 9 megahertz all the way up to the 19 or just shy of 20, the citizens band range we now have. Typically, if somebody in a main base station wanted to talk to someone 100 miles away out in the ocean, they'd sit there and tap out a series of dots and dashes. And there was this Morse code language going on between base
Yeah.
station and receiver. And that frequency range was specifically only for that. It was purposed for short wave radio. And the more higher the frequencies got, the bigger the tubes got, the bigger the applications and the radio itself, the chassis got. And eventually you wound up with what we have today, a CB radio.
Hmm.
Well, today, now they've morphed into God knows what. You have these Motorola complex things that have 800 megahertz. I mean, it's blow your mind. They're even going up into the 1,000 megahertz range for more complicated transmissions. But there
Wow.
you have it. There's your history of where CB radio came from.
Mm.
Who remembers listening from New York City area to shortwave radio transmissions, which happened in the 70s, 80s? People were broadcasting um, entire radio shows on these low end frequencies and listening to things like Army Navy games, which were being broadcasted. They weren't designed for it, but they were broadcasted anyway. But they were like right next to the AM frequencies, and they were so close, people could kind of spy on them and hear them, and they would be carried for miles. It was, yeah, I mean, just blow your mind. My father used to do that.
You
It
mean
was,
skip? Or you mean talking
oh
skip?
yeah, that's kind of what it was, but it wasn't within the CB. It was lower than the CB range. It was kind of in that shortwave kind of thing. You could have a shortwave radio that has a special transmitter, and if you had the ability to fine tune it, you could just barely pick it up. It was fascinating to hear.
Wow.
I mean, it was incredible. Talk about
I
bringing
mean,
it back.
I mean, I still have one CB radio.
Mhm.
All right, 40 channels
Yep.
with upper and lower sideband.
Yep.
I've got that also.
Okay,
Yep.
and then I have 40 channels with upper, lower, and sideband above
Yep.
40,
Mhm.
and 40 channels below 1 with
Right.
upper and lower sideband.
Right.
And I've,
What's the difference? Do you know?
what do you mean?
What's the difference between high band and low band?
It's a special installation that you pay $100 for, and
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir.
you get more. You
No,
get
sir.
40 more frequency. Hang on.
No.
This is what
Mhm.
I know. Okay. You
I think I'm
asked
going to teach
me.
you something. Go ahead.
I took my CB radio into a radio shop and I said, I want the talk back, I want the echo chamber,
Yeah.
and I want the 40 above 40 and the 40 below 1
Uh-huh.
with upper and lower sideband.
Yeah.
So before he took it into the radio shop, he had to get his air gun out and blow all the dust off because it was ancient. Mine's a mine's a Cobra 29 and it's got all that in it.
Yep.
What you have
Aside
hey,
from
wait a minute, Grumpy.
Okay,
You have
aside from
you
all the talk that just
grab
blew everybody watching away because no one knows what you're talking about, let me ask you a key question. Do you know what the difference is between upper and lower band frequency?
hell no. I just
Okay.
know it works.
Now that you have admitted the obvious truth, let me explain what it is. Okay.
I may
A
remember,
frequency
I may
number
not.
is designated for one channel. Okay.
Okay.
29685. That is the or no, it's 29575. That is the frequency for channel 19.
Okay.
Now, if you switch down to channel 17 or
Mm-hmm.
channel 18, next channel down,
Mm-hmm.
there's a 100 what?
I got to correct you on that, boss man. Hang
Well, I
on
don't
one
know. I
second.
don't have the numbers memorized, but
Don't
just,
worry
just
about
hear
it.
what I'm saying.
It's
Grumpy,
actually 27,185 for
okay,
19.
27, 185. Okay. The
There you
thing
go.
is, there's a 100 megahertz separation from channel to channel.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay. It's not a 100 meg. It's a 0.100. You know, point 0.1 is what that whole thing is. The sideband is nothing more than splitting that in half and giving you half that frequency number. So it's 50. There's a
Okay.
100 between channel and the low band. That upper band, your low band becomes the channel itself, and your high band becomes the separation. It's only 50 mega or half a megahertz, basically. That's
Okay.
all that is. I thought that was interesting when I first learned that because everybody's like wondering why when some people key up, they're only half, heard on one channel, but they blow your doors off on another. It's
Mm-hmm.
because they're skipping between half or that low band and high band, and
Okay.
they're using that splitter you're talking about and just blowing people away. It just drove me nuts, but I always wondered why that was. And they're playing with the frequency ranges, and that's what it is.
Okay.
And that's how you burn up a radio. If you don't understand that, you'll key up and you'll blow out the
You'll
transmitter.
blow your
Right?
finals.
You'll
You'll
Yep.
blow
blow
your
your
finals in
finals.
them.
Blow
Yeah.
'em out.
And then
Yep.
oh God, I don't have it anymore. But I used to have whenever I was talking skip,
Yep.
I used to have 1,000 watt kicker.
Yep. Yep. Who
Okay.
remembers that, right?
And it actually dimmed the trailer lights.
I remember when
When
my
you
father
keyed
had
up.
an 800 watt. Uh, he had the same thing. His was 800 watts, and he had an aerial antenna that went up 150 feet in the air, and the damn thing had a motor on it. It would spin the antenna, and he could find
Yep.
mud duck and blow his doors off. Right? That's what he always liked doing. But anytime he keyed up, the neighbors would call my mother on the
Mhm.
phone back when the phone was rotary dial.
Yeah.
Tell your husband to shut his mouth. He's all blowing up my television because the CRTs never
Oh
liked that
yeah,
stuff.
I
Every
remember
time you
that.
keyed up the mic with a kicker like that, the
Yep.
CRTs would go all fuzzy and you couldn't see
Yeah.
nothing. Oh,
Yeah. And if you had any fluorescent light bulbs real close to that, they glue. It's like
yeah, I know that.
daylight.
Yep.
Yep. Or
Oh
they did
God.
if you had a weak enough kicker, I always make them, had those little funny, um, they what they call a fluorescent dance.
Yeah,
Always
my
thought that was
cousin, he used to he'd get those small ones, little black
mhm,
light ones that are about 6 inches long,
right?
and he would attach it to his antenna. So when he keyed up, it would
Oh
come on.
yeah,
Yeah,
I've done that. I have done that.
yeah. Well, Dorothy,
I
we appreciate you spreading the word. I like the fact that people are liking our conversations. If you're telling people about our channels, we thank you.
Yes,
Spread it
thank you
word
very
and tell
much.
them we love trying to make trucking great again. Can't
I
speak
was
for Grumpy, but that's
hey
my mission.
grumpy,
I
grumpy,
give up on my internet with my other device. It's just
grumpy, grumpy.
horrible.
You
I
got me,
want.
so don't worry
I
about it.
wanna. I wanna thank you, Grumpy. I just gained a granddaughter.
Oh wow, that's
Well, my subscribers they tend to adopt people, which is
yep,
fine.
exactly.
I'm actually Uncle Grumpy, as you saw on there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be right back, my friend.
All right.
Okay, no problem.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
but seriously though, I mean, honestly, it's sad, really, in a way that the CB radio is basically just almost like a payphone anymore. Yeah, you can still find them and you
Yep.
can still purchase them,
Yep.
but hardly uses them. And when they do, they talk all kinds of gibberish on there that nobody cares.
Well, and
And
you see, up here it's the same thing with VHF.
mm,
uh, Indians, East Indians have their own channels.
mm,
Pakistanis have their own channels. English folks have their own channels. French folks have their own channels. Uh, when I turn on my VHF, I put it on scan. Okay. So
mm,
it scans like, I don't know, 30 different channels at once. Probably once every 10 seconds.
mm.
And when something kicks in, I can listen to it. I got it turned off right now because uh, I don't want it to interfere with what we're doing here.
Well, I mean, if you'd like to do a little show and tell, it's up to you. If you'd like to show your equipment there,
All right,
um,
fine. Hang on.
let the folks see
Uh,
kind of what you've got there.
okay, now I got to. Shit. Uh, hang on. Mm,
Well, if you need to change
no.
your camera settings,
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm doing it.
okay, okay,
I'm doing
there
it.
you go.
Yeah.
All right,
All right. So this is
go ahead and
my
keep your
this
phone or your whatever you're using sideways. We can get a better look at it, and I'll make you bigger.
okay. So this is my power pack. Okay. 12
Right?
volts, 12 volts. I turn it on. You heard that?
Does it plug into the wall?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't know if it was a wall plug-in or if you still use batteries.
No, no, no. Hang on. Okay. Just turned it off. Okay. Uh, hang on. It plugs into here. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll turn it on again.
Come on, be cooperative.
Okay. So it's got a
There we
cigarette
go.
light. It's got a cigarette lighter, but it's not a cigarette lighter. It's a power point. And I use these, okay, to power the VHF. So LAD 4, okay, is for a plant that's like about a quarter of a mile away from me, and I talk to them. So then I go here, and I scan. Okay.
That's
So
almost like just basically like we have down here, which is basically a way radio system. And depending on what channel you are using down here, you might be required to have a ham license for
yeah,
it.
but I don't need a license for this.
Anyone
Well,
can
up in
monitor anybody can monitor all UHF frequencies.
Yeah, but
yes,
There's nothing saying you can't monitor. So having
but
that device is not illegal.
but the thing
no,
Transmitting on it is different. You have to have a
yes,
license to transmit on it.
the thing is, oh shit, hang on. Okay, so uh,
I think we
uh-oh,
lost your audio. We lost your audio.
you lost your audio there, bud.
still, yo, yeah,
We
I know,
we
I
can hear
know.
you now. We can hear you
Okay,
now.
so
Yeah.
it's it's different.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Hmm.
now
Well, the Canadian broadcasting setup may be a little different than the U.S., but up
Yeah, a lot
here,
of their airways are different.
yeah. Well, U.S. and Canadian laws regarding communications are different,
are
but
different.
not to the
Right.
degree that it's night and day when you cross the border. But it is to the point where you know they earmark certain frequency
Ah,
ranges and certain
thank
permissions
you.
for um, for safety, and
Yep.
it's just that easy. You
Yep.
can monitor any frequency. You can monitor any frequency
Mhm.
anywhere. And you
Mhm.
can even have a radio that transmit on frequencies you're required to be licensed. Don't do it because they'll find you and they'll fine you, and find
Eh,
FIND and
And
then they'll fine
and
you.
yes,
FIND.
and to that earlier, whenever you said they can't triangulate you, that's not 100% true because there are
They
FCC
can.
vehicles that are located all over the place that
Yeah.
travel the highways. We don't know who they are,
Yeah.
and they monitor and they have a way to pick up the SWRs. And whenever they see that SWR meter is peaking like crazy, they know they're real close by, and they will pinpoint it.
Well,
It's
and
been done.
they've got other
and that's
technology that
and
tells
that's
them.
and
Yeah.
that's the same thing up in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can triangulate your output
Yeah.
within 3 feet.
Yeah. They can. Same thing with your cell service. I mean,
Oh
technology is
yeah,
just that beautiful.
yeah,
They can do that with anything.
yep.
They can
Hmm.
find you. But that's not because they want to be Big Brother. That is because sometimes there may be a reason to know that, whether it be for
Hmm.
your safety, you're in an emergency, you need help to locate you, but you can't get out the word to them.
That's
So,
right.
just like Dorothy said, should be a standard in semi. Yes, if you are a truck driver, you want any and all forms of communication available to you. Not that you'll use it, but you
Right.
know what? I have always been of the mindset. My wife will tell you, I'd rather have it, not need it, than need it
And not have
and
it
not have it.
and have
You
to
know,
use
I
it.
agree with you
fact.
100% on that.
Yes.
Yep.
So thank you,
I
Dorothy, for
got
that
a
contribution.
question.
What was that? You cranky old son of a
What do y'all
what?
think about the government what, getting back into monitoring Channel 19 for home bases to keep them off of it?
They do it all the time.
They
My
don't down
question
here
to you,
anymore.
Gilligan. My question to you, Gilligan, is where are you coming up with this basis of your question? What gives you the idea they're doing that?
Well, I know at some point in time that they did. That's why most truckers had CB. But this just what I heard is that they got rid of it to where they're not monitoring it nowhere near as much. And
My
that's why home
understanding is
bases have more altitude to get on 19
no. My understanding is they just don't have the manpower
Hmm.
and
now. Okay.
the need to monitor old fashioned radio because that's honestly what Citizens Band Radio
Old
is. It's
old
old fashioned.
fashioned. Kitty
It
radio.
is, yeah. It is but one tool in their arsenal to help them communicate with the average Joe. They have so many other forms of technology and ways to communicate with us that they don't focus on it anymore.
when
So
when
to those people like us that use it, we feel neglected. Whoop-de-doo.
yeah,
You know,
when the
we don't.
FCC really started monitoring channel
Yeah,
broadcasting as or citizen bands,
yeah,
it's known as both,
yeah.
was back in the 70s whenever, it became very popular where a lot of people that were in cars, not just big trucks, but
Yeah,
Yep,
cars,
cars.
were
Yep.
going and buying them and sticking them in them,
yeah,
and we're talking and all that with everybody. So they's like, we better do something about this. So they stepped
yeah,
in and started enforcing it and all that, requiring you to have a special license to be able to
yeah,
talk on there. So you had to have your own personal name,
License.
which is where
yeah,
License.
where
yeah,
you where most handles were discovered at, to identify who you were. And each
yeah.
time you keyed up that mic and spoke on it, you had to identify yourself.
That's right.
And that's basically very similar to how ham radios work now and still have for a long time.
Yeah.
Is you have a code that you have to tell out every time. Each code is different, and each code identifies
Well,
to the person that it belongs to.
3
back in the day,
letters.
they wanted a minimum of every hour. If you were occupying the frequency, they wanted you to do it. You didn't necessarily have to identify yourself with that code every single transmission. They wanted it
True.
done with a frequency range of once every 30 minutes or hour, depending on the source of your broadcast. Um, Nowadays, the only thing is if you're broadcasting on a uh, VHF or ham radio frequency, you're
Mhm.
now required to do it once in a broadcast.
Well,
Now, define broadcast because that could mean anything,
another
you
another
know.
crazy thing is whenever this sporadic thing happened back in the 70s where everybody was getting CBs, even four-wheelers back then.
Right.
um, it was illegal and still is today to have law enforcement to carry and monitor CB radio frequencies.
No, sir.
And the,
No,
Mm-mm.
sir.
the
Mm-mm.
No, sir. Police are actually encouraged to actually carry CB radios and monitor 19 and 9 because it
huh?
assists the 911 centers with locating people in emergencies. What
And
would the
Well,
harm be or the problem with the law be that would discourage them from doing it? I can't
well,
even begin to think that.
I mean, I know for a fact. I mean, I actually was checking this out. It was put in a famous movie, but I won't discuss the famous movie. But I actually decided I would do some little digging on it and found that a lot of the um, law enforcement were misabusing it.
well,
Therefore,
of
Yeah,
that's
course.
why it happened to be
yeah,
put into that movie that was
yeah,
famous.
yeah.
Are
I
we
know the movie
talking?
you're talking about.
Are we
No, no,
talking?
no, 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 no. I know the
Don't
movie
don't
you're
mention
talking
it,
about.
but he knows
I
which
know
one
the
I'm
movie
talking
you're
about.
talking about. But you know what? That meant that thing you're mentioning was the minority, not the majority.
Yeah, but
Some people,
True.
yeah, they would use it to try to catch people speeding or doing whatever criminal act they were doing, whatever.
Or they would
But I
do
mean,
police entrapment with it.
yeah, that too. But the idea of that being the minority, just is that most people back in that day, that was a new tech to them. That was a new thing.
hmm
And as quickly as cops designed a system to catch people, how quickly do you think they came up with solutions and loopholes around it? So
Mm,
it's just like cell phones. Back when cell phones were the thing, we figured out we could use internet calling protocol.
Yep.
Hell, I remember there used to be an app you could download where you could talk on ham radios and you didn't even have to have a freaking radio. You know, you could
yep.
chatter on that, but they eliminated it because it presented a safety hazard and a security
Yep.
risk.
hmm
So they're
It
coming
was
up with new
also
stuff
it was
all the
also
time.
available on certain
Yeah,
platforms that were
yeah.
computer based also.
Well, that's
So
it. Yeah.
yeah, because that's where I discovered it when it first came
Mhm.
out.
Yep. I mean, and to every new piece of technology and every new thing that people come up with, just as many people come up with ways to work around it, whether it
Yep.
be for good
Hmm.
purposes or bad purpose. frequencies. It doesn't matter. So, you know, but I don't think they ever discouraged, to the point you originally made, Grumpy. I don't think they ever discouraged law enforcement from using it. They discourage people from abusing it, yes,
Yeah.
but there's no harm in them monitoring, especially 19 and 9 for those.
Well, I know they were allowed to. They were supposedly they had CB radios that, well, back then I don't know, but
Yeah,
I'd have to check more. Back then, that was actually programmed for Channel 9 and Channel only.
yeah.
They could not go to other channels or anything. It was specifically only able to transmit and receive on Channel 9.
Yeah.
But a lot
To
of
your
them were.
point, to your point, Dorothy, what emergency services do now, that same radio that Poet just basically showed you has all the frequency ranges that include the citizens band frequencies, the low UHF band frequencies in the single digits, as well as the higher. It's all in one radio, and it's modified so they can do just that. They scan all frequencies to hear anything they need to hear. And if they're directed to go there and monitor, they can do it. Or if they just land on something and happen to save a life, God bless them. It's
I
a good way
have
to do it.
I
Yeah,
have 17 banks
yeah,
of channels,
yeah,
okay?
yeah.
But I can only scan one bank at a time. I can't
No, yeah,
scan
yeah,
the whole ball of wax.
yeah, yeah.
That
And
makes
that's the way
sense.
that's the way they all are. I mean, because it's hard to separate your, because each frequency bank has a transistor which separates the frequencies, and you can only use one at a time.
Yep.
So it makes sense that you can only do that, but they haven't
Yep.
figured out how to do what they call multiplexing and scanning.
Not
Those
yet.
you can
Right.
buy, but you can't house them in a dashboard. You just can't do it. They're huge.
And I will do
Right.
this. I will tell some people this that are watching that aren't very familiar with CB radios. If you don't know much about it, do yourself a favor. Go to an actual radio CB repair shop or radio installation and have them put it in, set it up properly, tweak it to where it's not going to burn out the finals and tear the radio up, and make sure that your SWRs are set right. Because if you don't, you're not going to have a
Mo-
radio very long.
Most of those CB radio shops will provide that for a very
Yep.
small
Mhm.
fee.
One
They
one
don't charge
point
much.
1.1 to 1.
Mhm. They will not charge much. Most of them
No.
maybe 10, $15 because it really don't take that
Well,
long to do. Most of that
I
fine tuning they can bench test and do, and all you got to do is just plug the antenna in, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I actually went to a CB radio shop here in Oklahoma,
yep.
and I had to have my radio repaired because a couple of the knobs were, well, one was broke completely off, one was bent and wouldn't turn.
Yep.
And this particular radio is very sentimental to me because it was gifted to me by my actual first trainee. He bought it and discovered he didn't like it, and he said, "Hey, I know you don't have a radio that works. Would you like this one?" And I said, "Thank you," and I accepted the gift. Well, meanwhile, switching jobs, my radio got broken, so I had to take it to the radio repair shop, which I took it there. They fixed it. I thought it was going to cost me an arm and a leg.
Yep.
No. This guy was very nice. He tweaked my radio for me to where it's legal, and gets out really well. He also, at the time the truck I was in, he actually put a new whip on it, but now the new truck I'm in has actually got a factory set one, so not much I
Yep.
can do about that. But
Yep.
it works. The SWRs are fine. But I was very happy. I got all that. He charged me, I think it was like 60, $70 for all what he did. And he said
Nice.
normally it would run close to $150 for what he did.
Yeah.
But he didn't charge me that much.
Yeah. That's
So
good.
I was real happy for it.
Yeah. Definitely look for
It's-
future business. That's how you do it.
That's it.
That's right.
Do you want to add something, Gilligan?
But I'm still trying to figure out about my question. I mean, I don't know if y'all actually answered it or not.
Was it one you
But
asked
do
while
you-
I stepped away, or what?
No, about the. Do you think they need to start monitoring for you to keep home bases to where they can't just overrule the radio, CB radio?
Oh, you're talking about the mud duck situations and stuff like
Yes.
that.
Mm.
You
Is it?
know, I mean, it is practical to do, I think, because it would eliminate people like mud duck from like blowing up people nearby. They
Mm-hmm.
know who they are. They know where they're
Mhm.
located. The trouble
We
that
have
they're having is the enforcement over what rule or law they're breaking. Because the problem that they're having where Mud Duck is concerned is he's well versed in radio communications law
Mm-hmm.
enough to know that what he's doing isn't quote technically breaking the law. He knows right when to key up, he knows right when not to, he knows right when to stop, and therefore he's technically not breaking a law, but he's annoying the piss out and pants out of everybody. But until he theoretically breaks a law, what can they do? You can't
well,
stop someone from doing
and
something until
we
they
have
break a law.
Hey,
You
I've
know?
we have a
had.
couple of those kind of guys here in Oklahoma. Every time you go up there around Reno or Oklahoma City,
Yeah,
forget it. You're not going to get out a word on that radio as long as they're on there.
exactly.
I, I, we,
And
when
even
I
up around
lived,
Tulsa and Murray.
when
Yep,
I,
exactly.
when I lived in southern Ontario,
Mhm.
okay,
Yep,
many, many moons ago,
yep,
we had a guy like that. He had a Yaesu ham radio.
yep.
I know what those
Uh,
are.
you do?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Anyway, he used to possess and transmit all over Kitty Band, Citizen Band, uh, and he used to piss people off. Well, somebody
Mm.
found out where he lived. He had a 150-foot tower, okay,
100, yeah.
with
Yep,
a
okay,
turnable beam.
yep. Just like my dad did.
Okay, we just pinned his coax.
Oh, Jesus. Did it smoke it?
Oh yeah.
Mhm,
Now, for those that are not aware, pinning a coax, okay,
Mhm.
a coax or coaxial cable has two metal components, and the rest
Mhm.
is all insulators.
yep,
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, you stick a pin into the outside insulator,
yep,
Mhm.
okay? Make sure that you touch the ground
yep,
with that pin
yep.
and touch
That takes care of the radio problem.
Yep,
yeah, but you gotta touch the center core.
yep, yep.
It blew up his $2,500 radio, and this is going back uh, 42, 43 years ago.
Yep. It created a feedback loop with the transmitter and therefore shorted it out. It
Blew it.
burnt
Yeah.
up. It just went
Oh yeah.
boom. Yep.
Oh yeah.
It's an actual pretty display. I've seen that happen before. It's a nice blue light for about 2 seconds, and you're not going to talk to nobody.
Done.
Yep. Yep. And there's smoke too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, did I forget to
Yeah.
mention that? Yeah.
And it's not just the finals that blew;
Yeah.
it was the whole internals.
Yeah. Yeah. And then some of them transmitters are relatively cheap. The transmitters themselves are not that big of a deal, but it's the circuitry that goes along with it. That's a pain in
That's
the ass.
right. That's
You know,
right.
especially in today's day and age, because
Yep,
it's
yep,
hard to
yep.
find. You
So
know.
But
I'm sorry if I said something that should
Uh,
not be legal, but that's how
no,
we
you.
took care of the
Well,
problem.
Yeah,
yeah,
you're recanting stories that happened long ago, so it's
yeah.
nothing
This is
illegal
this.
about it.
You know,
Nothing illegal about it.
Mm.
Anyway,
and
that's why I was asking.
either. I mean, it's not like that. It's not like somebody probably couldn't have said and went out there with a good pair of side cutters or something and just snipped it.
And
yeah,
that's
right.
You know.
but that would do the same thing.
Yep.
Hmm.
But if you stick a pin into coax and cut off the end of the pin,
Yep.
you'll never find it.
Or you play hell trying to find it. Yep.
You'll find it once your radio goes boom.
No, you
Because it's
won't.
gonna.
No,
Well, see,
Yeah,
you'll
'cause-
look. I
no.
get the point Poet's making, because you'll actually look at the cable. You'll not see that little pinhole,
That's right.
and you'll miss it entirely. You'll think you have a good cable, but you don't. And I
Yeah.
see the point he's making. It's
And
almost
then-
impossible until you replace the cord, which 90% of people don't think about.
No, and they replace the radio key
Yeah.
up.
Yep. Bam. Same thing happens. Yep.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
But
Mm.
So what'd you
nowadays
think,
they
Rob?
put them fuses in them.
Say what?
What's that, Gilly?
Nowadays they put fuses in them, so when like especially like my radio here, for
That-
TVs.
Well, there too.
That
how
only
many
takes
fuses
care
to
of the
keep 'em
power
from popping
going
it.
to the radio, not for the actual running
The
it.
transmitters
From your
run on
antenna.
separate. Yeah, transmitter's got a separate power bank all itself. It runs off main
Yeah.
power.
Mhm.
But there too, even if that weren't the case, how many fuses would you go through before you actually figured out what Poet just talked about?
Yeah.
I doubt many.
You
I
go through
doubt
quite a
many.
bit.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah.
So
Oh
what
my
say you, Grumpy? I don't know if you got the message I sent you privately, but
I'm out
We
for a
good.
second, but I'm listening.
yeah.
Well, I wondered. I can't hardly see the screen now since I don't have my other device.
Yeah.
We can't
Well,
really
we
tell
talked
how
about
many
before.
wonderful subscribers we have watching us currently.
Yeah.
How many?
Right now we got 3 people watching.
3, okay. How long we been running? I can't. I'm sorry. I apologize. I can't see
Hour
nothing.
7.
Yeah, we're an hour and 7 minutes in.
Okay. If you need to take care of business, boss man, I mean, we can call it a day and we can reconvene next week. And of course, we
Up to
can
you.
watch Trucking
Your
City
show.
Media, which Grumpy will be on this afternoon with Boss Man.
Yeah.
Mm.
I got a show I'm going to start around 7 o'clock this evening. So hope to have a fun
Eastern.
time. Eastern, exactly.
Mhm.
So
He keeps forgetting
No.
Grumpy is on Central Time. I don't know why, but been
Dorothy,
friends
you
for
are
over
not,
a year and a half almost now.
Dorothy, you are not allowed to apologize for anything. You're not typing
Oh,
your time.
no,
because
dear.
You crochet your little heart away, my lady. You do what you do. You are watching. That's all
Yes.
that counts. Do not apologize, my lady. Anyway, so
And
anyway,
to that, I will say, Dorothy, I did check out your channel, and I do like your crochet work. It is beautiful.
yeah,
Keep
yeah.
that up, and don't be afraid to show your work.
Mhm.
Amen to that. Amen to that. If you
So
guys,
with that all said, anybody else got anything else they want to quickly talk about
I was
that we
going to
might have
say, if
missed?
you guys don't want to take a moment of your time, go down below on the replay. If you see this, take a moment, show us guys some love. I'm Boss Man. I'm with Trucking City. That's Grumpy. He's the host of the show. Up above, we are totally dedicated to helping you guys live a better life, see things our way, and love trucking. So take a moment, give us a like, go down below, subscribe if you have not already. With that being said, Grumpy, what do you like to do?
Make sure
I
you hit
say
that
thank
thumbs
you.
up.
Thank you to each and every one of my wonderful subscribers and my viewers also that came over from another platform and watched me. I appreciate it very much, and I will do my best to be here every Sunday around the same time. I just don't like technology when it messes up. It only is good as it is when it works. You know my saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, guess what? It was broke again today, so I had to fix it. So thank you all. Y'all have a wonderful Sunday, and I will see you next Sunday. Grumpy out.